Hello and welcome. Another episode of Cavell Cloud Conversations. A cold Friday in the UK. Is it snowing near you, Patrick? Because it almost snowed near me yesterday, which is
No,
odd.
no, there was snow. Well, there was some snow, but nothing settled. But you're right, it is cold. It's January. Everyone's generally full of cheer. It's that time of the year.
Controversial take to start the podcast. I think we should all move to the Chinese New Year instead of whatever we're doing at the moment,
Okay,
right?
yeah. How does that work?
Reason. So Chinese New Year typically starts at the end of winter and the start of spring. How much
Yeah.
better would you feel if the new year wasn't followed by a month of whatever is going on outside?
Also, it's not just, and this is completely off usual pod. This is such typical British chat. It's not just that the New Year, particularly in the UK, the New Year in the UK is followed by 3 months generally of terrible weather.
Exactly.
January,
Yeah.
February, March, doom weather, which I personally have had enough of, Finbar. So if we can restructure yeah, would I rather get most of the bad weather out of the way and then be starting? So when does the Chinese New Year start? Does that?
Well, it's sometime in February. It moves every year. But
Okay, well, yeah, maybe I would rather get through the
how
bulk of the
about like
bad
just a
weather.
nice like 1st of March, right?
Yeah. What? So we go like fiscal year.
Yeah, closer to the financial year. But generally, the
Yeah,
idea is that you get all the bad weather out of the way,
yeah,
and then, boom, sun, spring weather. It's you're not
yeah.
perfect, but it's all
I,
right, and
I
you're
don't.
feeling good. Yeah.
Well, who do we put that suggestion to? Anyway, yeah, I'm
Well, thankfully, I am in charge of the calendar in the
the calendar. Yeah,
as I
excellent.
form the office of the calendar and time monitoring. Unfortunately, my more controversial opinion is that the globe is getting rid of time zones, and we're all going to be on one 24-hour clock. But anyway, we'll get into that another point, right? That'll be for the
Metric
next
cloth.
podcast. If you
Yeah,
want Finbar's hot takes on why everyone should be on
calendars.
one singular time zone, join the next podcast. It's very spicy. Diving straight in. So I was reading an article this week by Tim Banting, who's the new head of intelligence at CX Today, and he was talking about this concept of data gravity. Do you understand the concept of data gravity, Patrick?
I am looking forward to be educated on the concept of data gravity.
Okay, well, it's the concept that basically what platform you use and the tools you have is one thing, but where you store all your data is kind of where the gravity is in your enterprise ecosystem. So at the moment, there's a lot of data gravity towards Salesforce because you have all your customer data in there, or your warehouse management system, or your inventory management system. They have the gravity, and then all the other platforms get built around it, right? And the question posed, I was reading this article, but also I was thinking about it a bit more, is if we're moving more into an agentic agents are capable of speaking to each other, going into different platforms, getting data out by making smart requests, this data gravity power actually starts to get lessened a bit because rather than having one system and whether like Salesforce and whether I buy things that are working on my communications depends on how well they integrate with Salesforce.
Yep.
If Salesforce has a good agent and I have a good agent on my other platform and they can speak to each other, then that data gravity pull is lessened. And it's just an interesting concept. What do you think
That,
about that?
yeah, it is an interesting concept. I suppose my question should be my question to that would be is it so much where the data is, or is it because there was that what we were thinking quite a while ago is it was more I'm stealing the gravity. Is it sort of user behavior gravity? Because surely it's where the user interacts with the data should be the effective. If we're continuing this, or the metaphor should be the black hole the singularity that everything is pulled into. Is
Well,
is that the key piece
but this is exactly the point, right? Because at the moment, users are forced into friction as they have to
between the two?
go to the
I
platform
get
where
you.
the data
Yeah,
is stored, which doesn't necessarily have the best interface with where they are actually
where they
working.
want to work. Okay, got you. That makes. Oh yeah, no,
And
that makes a lot of sense.
and
Yeah.
that means that where they're working actually has to interface with the system of record, the place where the data is. But actually, if we think about agentic bots as the front end now, then I could be working in Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Word, just requesting my bot to go and get me data without switching to a different platform.
So you save the toggle tax and the app switching time and all of that. That does make a lot
We
of sense.
know is a big problem from all of our surveys of people having to
Yeah,
use, 3, 4, 5 applications just to do one task in a customer experience workflow, for example. So we know that's a problem. So if you remove that friction, people are efficient already because they know how these systems work. You train them, they know how to switch. Realistically, you're tabbing between applications pretty fast, copying the data. You figure workarounds. It's more just about not fun, but like ease of working.
user experience. Yeah, and I suppose all of our research shows that the number one thing people are looking to drive out of AI is efficiency and productivity. And you're right, users create their own workarounds, and we have them internally at Cavell. We have several key different business applications, and I just have 4 or 5 of them open at once. If I only had to have one of them open, and you're right, there was seamless integration and data gravitational waves flowing through the different systems that I didn't have to be involved in. There was I'm really taking this metaphor too far. There was effectively the Higgs boson equivalent, transmitting under the scenes, not even knowing, without me having to do a lot of that manual process. That would be useful. So no, that's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating because obviously at the moment we're putting so much power and functionality into where we store data in a structured way that can be accessed via APIs. And we're not there yet, but we are potentially on the verge of shaking that up, moving to more unstructured data that is understandable and accessible by these agentic-based systems, and therefore breaking the power to a certain extent of the large CRMs, of the large ERPs, all of those sorts of systems. And it is going to be a very exciting space to see what happens. But obviously, the CRM companies are investing in ways to push their own agents out there and maintain control of as much of the enterprise stack as you can. But there is a chance, we might not need a HubSpot, for example, is the one we used. In a few years' time, because we'll just say, cool, make me a customer record, and then you'll tell your team's chatbot to fetch you relevant customer records.
Do we think, and just thinking out loud here, do we think that impacts what application wins the sort of desktop battle from a user perspective? Because I suppose all of that requirement is still different depending on your user persona. If you're and I don't like the term knowledge worker, but if you're a desk-based worker, it's likely to be the productivity suite. If you're a customer experience agent, it's likely to be your contact center system. If you're a support worker, it's likely to be a support ticketing system, or even some sort of more complex backend. So are we thinking that battle will be less impacted, or it will be more based on user personas, depending on if data can be more easily retrieved from each of these systems?
I think there is genuinely a use case for this sort of automatic retrieval based on context for every single worker that's using a digital interface, right? And across every level of business, right? We're talking about, and I was at a conference a few weeks ago. Do you remember Clippy? It's a bit of a tangent.
The Microsoft.
How could you forget? How could you forget? Right? Yeah. So, but Clippy's thing was, it seems like you're trying to do X. Do you want help?
Yes.
Right. But really, what we want is, whenever we're working on anything, we want a smart system to pop up and say, "Seems like you're trying to do this. Would this piece of information help?"
Yeah.
Seems like you're trying to think about any business use case and think of a worker trying to do anything from initiating a return to booking an appointment for their boss to editing a Word document, and a bubble pops up that says, "I think you're trying to do X. This is a piece of information that might help. Should I do it this way?" And how useful that would be if it was good.
Yes, if it was good. Yes, that's no, you're right. No, you're right. That is
good.
Yeah.
It seems like you're writing an email to your survey provider. This was your last email to them. This is their billing data.
Yeah, it seems like you're writing a report on this. Would you like me to pull all the relevant data we have in relation to CRM or security and voice or voice AI? Yes, that would be very useful. So no, that isn't. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Yeah.
And you still need the data stored somewhere, but it may not need to be in such as an expensive structured format. It may be able to exist in other formats because you're not actually interfacing with it in the way that you did before, because your user experience, your UI, is actually the platform you're using already. Anyway, that's an interesting concept to consider.
Yeah, no, very interesting.
I'm not saying it's a 2026 thing. It is starting, but I'm not saying it's not a prediction for 2026 that we're going to start seeing the breakdown of data gravity. But it is just a consideration of how people are building.
It does. And just a last thing on that, we were talking years ago about the idea of enterprises, especially very large enterprises, moving away from applications that they would buy off the shelf as standalone products, and the idea of the composable enterprise, where you would get a software development company to make you a piece of software that would pull all of the different pieces that an individual user needed into a bespoke, which clearly has not materialized. There are very, very few, even very large enterprises that have done any work like that. So I suppose it's sort of a new way of thinking of getting to that end goal without having to go through a huge, millions and millions of dollars or pounds or euros of software development in order to make yourself a bespoke software system.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because it does it automatically, assuming it's accurate. But then that's a different challenge, right? There's two different challenges. Make the use case and then make the use case work and then make it cost effective. I mean, three things that the industry has to solve. But I thought it was very interesting. So thank you, Tim Banting, for that suggestion. If you're listening, I'm assuming you always listen to this podcast. Not that you've ever indicated to me that you do, but, maybe you will now. Anyway, I thought that was quite interesting. Other things that are just happening in the news that kind of reinforce sort of news. So I know we were talking earlier, there's some news recently about CallTower and Tollring. I know you know those companies, I'd say, better than I do, so maybe you want to talk through what's been happening on that front.
Yeah, so CallTower very, very successful in the voice channel space, North America, Western Europe, expanding into Western Europe and more widely globally, expanding their partnership with Tollring, who provide specific primarily call based, but they've expanded that analytics capability out. Both CallTower separately in terms of selling the voice, Microsoft Teams, direct routing, Operator Connect partner, and Tollring have a specific product for Microsoft Teams. Have expanded that capability for compliance recording, and I think it's just a marriage that makes a lot of sense. CallTower have a lot of Microsoft Teams voice seats. Tollring have a lot of special capability in analytics and compliance, so it's a perfect marriage in terms of expanding that capability. And I suppose it goes on to what we were talking about before in terms of that. It's just bringing more and more of that data insight into the key platforms. You want to know what the voice interaction is between individual Teams users. You want to ensure that any call recording is done in a compliant fashion that meets your requirements, and you also want, some of those AI features that I know the Tollring team, we know them very well a bit, have been working on with their development team to offer them those into the piece. So I think it's an ideal marriage. CallTower sold loads of Microsoft Teams, Tollring specialist solution there, continuing to deepen that integration makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I mean, as we've predicted, and I think will continue to be the focus for a lot of communications providers in 2026, getting business insights out of all forms of communication that are happening in the business. When I go out and I interview CCaaS enterprise managers and things like that, what do they tell me? They tell me sentiment extraction. What are people saying? How do they feel about it? Are things going well? Are they not? Let's not rely on people to tell us, because if they're telling us, it means that things are either terribly wrong or terribly good. There's a lot of people who fall into a middle ground in your business who could be doing better if they had a bit of help. They're not going to ask for it. They're soldiering on, or they, are doing quite well, but other people could learn from them. And getting that insight, taking it out in a way that doesn't put extra pressure on them in terms of feeling like they're monitored, but also just helps your business, seems to be like a vital area for expansion in.
That makes complete sense. Yeah.
The other thing, of course, just a note, so another piece of news is obviously BCM1 have rebranded under the Pure IP brand, a brand they acquired in 2023. I think you were telling me that Pure IP had quite a good reputation, so bringing everything under that name makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we were involved. So actually, our history at Cavell and the history, my history with the Pure IP goes back a long way. Back Modality Systems, it was eventually acquired by Pure IP. We worked with Pure IP at Cavell several years ago before they were acquired by BCM1. BCM1, obviously, renowned in the channel, but I think Pure IP's reputation within particularly UCaaS, and they've expanded their CCaaS capability, but they were the leading Microsoft Teams voice enablement partner globally and potentially still are that. So I think to align the UCaaS, well, and that's what BCM1 have done, is the UCaaS and CCaaS portfolio under Pure IP makes a lot of sense. Really well-renowned brand within the industry, real expertise in voice, and now not just in the Microsoft space, across WebEx and into other areas. And I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of recognition. But real credit to that business has grown up over a number of years and really developed its capabilities across the Microsoft stack into other areas. And I think it was a really shrewd acquisition by BCM1 at the time, and one of the leading players in the voice enablement space.
Exactly. And again, I mean, this kind of ties into our theme of data, which is the theme of the episode. If you hadn't gathered already, there's the sort of spoiler warning for you. Data is the theme of this episode. As we sort of think to wrap it up, is that we're looking at UCaaS and CCaaS converging. This is another instance of a large brand converging their UCaaS and CCaaS portfolio. A large driver of that is simplification of the stack and extraction of data. So there you go, your 3 topics and themes for this. And we're going to be talking a lot about data this year. Gravity of data. Where is it stored? How is it broken down? How is it managed? Call recording partnerships. How is it being collected? Richer data, understanding of how businesses are working, and then further convergence of platforms across the stack. So UCaaS, CCaaS, CRM, all of these things coming closer and closer together with the idea that data can be gathered, free flow between them, and lead to better, more integrated outcomes for your customers. So, if we gave you our predictions in the last podcast episode, we're kind of continuing to just reinforce what is happening this year. Data is coming more available, more of it's being harvested, things are being integrated, and things are being used. A continuation of the trend from last year, but definitely an acceleration, a realization of the benefits of it, and really just continuing our data-led communications focused journey.
I just wanted to continue that theme with we talked about the Cavell Impact series in a previous podcast which we've launched, where we're looking at emerging technology areas from a commercial standpoint. I just wanted to, on the theme of data, we will be making some free data available from the latest report in that series, which is focusing on voice security, and that will be a free webinar. That's Tuesday the 3rd of September at 4 p.m. We'll put a link in the description of this podcast and in the comments of our website.
Sorry, did you mean to say September, Patrick?
Did I say September?
You did.
If I said, and that just shows, and goes back to your original point about calendaring, because that is absolutely not correct. Yeah, 3rd of February, we're not waiting 9 months. Yes. 3rd of February 2026 at 4 p.m. GMT.
Sorry to call you out, but the audience needed to know that.
No, I think that is absolutely fair. And let's make sure we won't edit that, because it goes back to our original theme of calendaring, which is obviously causing me a problem. So not September, so 3rd of February, 4 p.m. GMT. And we'll be sharing some of the insights from that security report. So that is on the theme of data, free data.
Yes, our webinars are always insightful, very, very deep dive. You can ask questions, and you'll have something to take away on the data front with you when you leave. That was us. I think this was a great podcast episode. Let us know if you agreed. Share it on LinkedIn. Tell us what you liked about it. Tell us what you didn't like about it. Do get in touch if you have any questions. And we will speak to you all very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.